Welcome to another production with the Technology Training Team. This video is a webinar recording of the T3 Playground Zoom Part 2, where we will explore advanced features in Zoom. Again, thank you for joining us today for T3 Playground Zoom Part 2. We'll be discussing more about the advanced features. Our agenda for today, I'm just going to briefly discuss what was covered in Zoom Part 1. And if you need more information on what was covered in Zoom Part 1, you can go back to our presentation and our webinar recording that's already posted on our T3 website. And I will be showing you where you can access that at the end of this presentation. We will also review critical requirements. This was also reviewed in Part 1, but just as a reminder to make sure your meetings are secure and you're able to meet with your students. We will also talk about how to manage and troubleshoot with Zoom. And the advanced features we are covering here is virtual backgrounds, screen sharing with external devices, polling, and breakouts. So I'm going to be turning on a poll in just a moment, and I just want you to think. This question is, which of the following are the top 2 items you want to learn more about? So I'm going to go ahead and click open the poll. And I'm going to give you some time to answer. And the options, this is multiple choice, meaning you can pick more than one answer. And we're asking you to choose the top 2 items you want to learn more about. So it's either manage students on Zoom, virtual backgrounds, screen sharing, polling, and breakout rooms. Just going to give you a moment there to answer. Just got about 72% of you have answered. Just a couple more seconds. If you don't see the poll, you may need to click on the 3 dots. And instead of next to Q&A, you should see the option for polling. Okay, since we got majority of you have answered, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. Don't worry if you aren't able to answer. I just wanted to see what majority most of you have said. So I'm going to go ahead and click close. My computer is still loading the results. While I'm still loading this, it just looks like a majority of you definitely want to learn breakout rooms. 32 out of 57 of you have answered that. I'm going to share the results so that you can see that as well. So most of you wanted to make sure they understand breakout rooms and managing students on Zoom are the 2 biggest things on there. And then coming in 3rd and 4th place is screen sharing, polling, and the last one is virtual backgrounds. Okay, so I just wanted to get an idea of what you want to make sure you learn by the end of this session. So that is my goal, to make sure you are able to get all of the pieces. And let's continue. Okay, so now what was covered in Zoom Part 1? In Zoom Part 1, we covered what is Zoom, how to access Zoom, record Zoom meetings, some critical settings, how to schedule meetings either with a reoccurring, with an automatically generated meeting ID, and a personal meeting ID. How to manage the Zoom platform and manage students, how to access the usage reports to get attendance and to see which students came into your meetings and how long they've been in there, some best practices, and some resources that include etiquette and expectations. To learn more about these specific things, you can go back to our webinar recording and the presentation if you wanted more information on these specific things. When you have access to this presentation, we have also linked here the digital tools Zoom page, so that when you do click on it, it takes you straight to our Zoom page on our T3 website. I just clicked on it, and you can find all of the guides for getting started, advanced feature guide, a settings guide, scrolling down, guides for you to share with your parents and students in English, Spanish, and French. And scrolling on down, you'll see the introduction to PGCPS Zoom presentation, along with the recording during pre-service week and the webinar recording from last week. The presentation for today, which is part 2, is already posted here. And by the end of this week, we will have the webinar recording of this session. And if you scroll down, we have additional resources for you that can be helpful. Okay, review critical requirements. This was already shared in Zoom part 1, and but just want to make sure that teachers are putting in the critical settings in place. Please make sure that waiting room is on, require a passcode, embed a passcode, which is in our settings, and only authenticated users can join. Please make sure that you select pgcps.org for meeting with students and sign into Zoom when meeting with parents. This one, we also recommend if you want to start out your meetings where the host camera is off, participants' videos are off, and allow remove participants to rejoin. If you do remove a student from your Zoom meeting and you want them to be able to join again on another day, you will have to turn this back on to allow them to come back. So just an FYI on that. And then on the right side here, we have completely up to you depending on the needs of your class, and where you can have either on or off, chat, polling, nonverbal feedback, and reactions. Also, please note that some settings are already locked by admin for security purposes so that you don't have to worry about turning certain things on or off. We also have a guide of recommended settings and a comprehensive guide that explains every single setting there is, because there are so many Zoom settings on there that we could spend hours on. So we created a guide for you on what we recommend to be on or off and what is the purpose of those settings. And if you haven't seen it already, we've also created a Zoom requirements / management / troubleshooting guide to help you. I'm going to go ahead and click on this so that you can see this document. Just reminders to help you to make sure you have the required settings and how to manage your students, along with troubleshooting issues. So I'm just going to scroll down so you could see how to make sure you access Zoom for the teachers, making sure the settings that you are putting into place when creating a meeting, along with required security settings for all meetings. And I'm just going to keep scrolling down. We even have little screenshots here to help you manage through, and I will be showing that again in here and during this session as well. So just to let you know that you can always refer back to this if you need to remember something that we've discussed during this session. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. So this is a very important document. When you access this presentation, I recommend bookmarking this or saving this so that you can always go back to it. Okay, oops. Now let's talk about managing Zoom. We're going to be talking about what's the difference between an alternate host versus a co-host, how to manage your students, how you can manage your screens, make sure you're end meeting for all, and a possible extension that you can use to help you schedule Zoom. So alternative host versus co-host. An alternative host and co-host have very similar rights and abilities. The only difference between an alternative host and a co-host is that with alternative hosts, they can start the meeting before the actual host or without the host themselves. And in order for you to add an alternative host, you need to do it in advance, and you also need to make sure both users are a licensed account. For example, I am the host and I want to make Clarissa Burton the alternative host as well. We both need to have a licensed account in order to do that. If Clarissa Burton doesn't have a licensed account, I will not be able to add her in advance. However, you can make any participant a co-host live in the meeting. So when you go into the meeting, you'll look for the participant's name and you hover your mouse over it. You'll see two buttons that you can choose from. You will click more, and then you can see there's an option to make a host or make them as a co-host. And they have pretty much the same rights as the host. The only thing that you won't be able to do as a host or an alternative host is start a breakout room. The main host has to do that. So I'm just going to show here, I'm going to go into my PGCPS account by going to pgcps-org.zoom.us. And this is the same link that you can access from the staff portal. When you get to this link, you'll click sign in. Mine's automatically signed in for me. And on the left side, you'll see an option for meetings. And just for this example, I'm just going to show here, I'm going to schedule a meeting. And I can put in all of my schedule information, but if I scroll all the way down, oops, sorry, I am in the wrong account. It's in my technology. I'm going to open a new window. I apologize for that. I'm in multiple accounts, so it gets a little confused as to which account I'm in. Okay, so I am in my account. When I select meetings tab on the left, then I will see the button schedule a meeting. So if I click on schedule a meeting, I will complete all of my meeting information. But if I scroll all the way down, you'll see here an option that says alternative host. It's at the bottom right before you need to save and cancel. And you need to put the full email address of that person. So for example, I want to make Clarissa as an alternative host. So I'm going to click on that. And notice there's no special message on here. But if I add someone that doesn't have a license account, for example, okay, this one is a student, so all students have basic accounts. You'll notice it says here that this person is not a paid user. So that's where you will know that they are unable to be added because they don't have a licensed account. So that's how you will add any alternative hosts, and they can start the meeting without you. When I go into later during our demonstration within Zoom, I will also show you how to make someone a co-host in here. I'm gonna go ahead and close out of this. Okay. Now, the next thing is about managing students. I have created here some screenshots for you on where to find certain settings within the meeting controls. So there are three main buttons that you can look at in your meeting controls. There's the security button, the participants button, and the chat button. When you click security, this is where you can check and uncheck things to enable or allow your participants to be able to do something. So if you want to make sure that you want your students to not be able to unmute themselves, notice here mine is checked off. That means the students can unmute themselves. So making sure this is unchecked will help you to keep the students muted. And again, these are screenshots that we're showing so that you know what settings are available under which button. So for example, the security button, the participants button, and the chat button. In just a moment, I'm going to create a Zoom meeting for you to try to join. If you did see in our messaging from my PPS, to see if you can have a second device to try to join the Zoom meeting so that I can show you certain things, what the teacher will see, and then you could also see what the student sees when you join me. If you don't have a second device, that is completely fine, but just keep in mind you can just look at my screen and see what the host will see. So I will be demoing and showing you these settings within the Zoom meeting. The other slide I have here is what happens when you share your screen. So the meeting controls change. It becomes a floating control panel. It starts going at the top of your screen, and then you're like, oh no, I can't find my students. I can't find the chat. I can't see who's in here. So whenever you see the floating controls, it just moves to the top, and some of the settings slightly move to a different place. So I'm going to go back here. I'm just going to show that when you see the meeting controls at the bottom, the participants in the chat will usually, show up on the right side. But when you're sharing your screen, the floating controls, these different panels will be like a separate window on your screen that your students will not be able to see. So I'll be showing that as well. And then lastly, additional options. By clicking on more, you'll see the additional options for your meeting in here, which I'll be showing as well in our session. And the next thing is about managing your screens with split screen. I provided here some YouTube videos on how to split your screen using a Mac, using a Windows device, and using a Chrome device. So this is also a helpful video you could share with your students if you want them to be able to toggle between your Zoom meeting and another window as well. Okay, so I'm going to pause there at this section, and I'm going to go ahead and start a Zoom meeting, and I'm going to share that Zoom meeting information with everyone here. So as the host, we highly recommend using the software on your computer versus the browser. Using the software on your computer allows you to see most of the features and settings and options that you have chose. So I am here using a Mac, and here you'll see I have Zoom on my dock. You may need to search for it on your computer, or if you have a shortcut, it's wherever you saved it. So I'm going to go ahead and click my Zoom, and I'm already signed in. And Clarissa will be placing it in the chat in just a moment. And if you have a second device that has Zoom on it, I recommend joining on the second device so that it won't overload your computer, because you're going to be using WebEx and Zoom at the same time. So here, I'm going to go ahead and start a new meeting with my personal meeting. I'm going to mute myself and stop video because I am using WebEx and Zoom at the same time. So if you can join me, Clarissa has just put in the chat the link to join my meeting, and also the meeting ID and the passcode if you need to type it in. So once I'm in here, it automatically shows me my camera is off. This is my profile picture. And the first thing I do is open my participants panel, which opens up on the right, and my chat panel, which opens on the right below it. And I notice a lot of you are joining my meeting, which is great. Before I let you all in, I always want to make sure my settings are in place before I let anyone in. And which is what's great about the waiting room. You can make sure everything is in place before they join. So first, I'm going to go to my security button, and I want to make sure my waiting room is turned on, and obviously it is. I see people coming in on my participant panel. I have share screen unchecked, meaning I don't want my students to be able to share their screen, so I make sure that's turned off. I also have the option to turn off chat and unmute themselves. For now, I'm going to allow everyone to be able to unmute themselves so that you could see what happens on there. Okay, So I can individually look at each individual person and admit them or remove them. Or if I believe that all of them are good to go, I could go ahead and click admit all. I'm going to go ahead and click that. Then you'll see everyone coming in. And I still have 2 more in the room. Oh no, there we go. So there's many of you in the room. So here's the thing about the camera, however. The camera though, students can still turn on their camera, but as soon as I turn it off for them, they can't turn it back on. So there is a chance for them to still be able to open their camera in the middle of my lesson, but once I turn that off, they can't turn it back on. So for example, I have here Deborah at the top of my screen. I'm going to click the 3 dots and I can click stop video. And now her video is gone. And I do have chat open, but Deborah, can you see if you can turn your camera back on? And if you can't, go ahead and type in the chat here to show that they can't turn it back on. Unfortunately, there is no button for me to stop video for every single student, but you will have to do it on an individual basis. And now also you could see here that, let me admit all here, that I have my screen view where I have the main one person's big screen, and while all of my other participants are at the top, and I have to scroll through each individual one. I do have the option on the top right where it says view. If I click on it, I have speaker on right now. So Miss Yang is the one that's showing as my speaker, but I can also change it to gallery. So I'm going to go ahead and click gallery. Now I see most of my participants. So right now I have 19 total people. So there you go. Thank you, Deborah, for being my guinea pig there, where she's not able to turn it back on because I have turned it off. So that's how you can control your student's camera. You will have to do it individually for each student when it comes to the camera, but when it comes to muting, you could do that all at once by clicking on the mute all button. To make sure the students don't unmute themselves, if I happen to be recording, we're not allowed to have any faces or any faces or voices of our students when we are recording. We can definitely make sure the students don't turn on their sound. I can go here on the security button and click uncheck unmute themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then you'll see that the students won't be able to unmute themselves at all. And if anyone tried to test that out, go ahead and put in the chat and tell me if you can't. And if you can, obviously I'll be able to hear you right now. Excuse me. So that is being able to control your students when it comes to the camera and the muting. Thank you, Ms. Simmons. And can you be more specific? How to mute all. So we have a button here. If anyone did mute themselves, right below the participants panel, you can click mute all and it will mute everyone. And then it's also asking you can allow the participants to be able to unmute themselves, but we're not going to let them. So I'm going to click mute all. They're already muted. And you can see as someone comes in later in the meeting, I could see they have popped up at the top telling me that someone's entered the waiting room. And I can click admit if they can come in. And hello, Miss Poole. So again, to make sure that they aren't unable to unmute themselves is by going to the security button and look at where it says allow participants to, and below that says unmute themselves. Notice how it is unchecked, and that means no one can be able to unmute themselves. If you do need to turn off chat because students are being inappropriate in there, you could also turn off chat by clicking on the security button. And notice here I have chat checked off. If I click on it, it will uncheck it. If I click it again, you could see. So now none of my students can screen share, none of my students can chat, and none of my students can unmute themselves. So again, the security button is going to become your best friend when it comes to when your students are not following directions. Right now, as the host, I can still chat to everyone. But you'll notice if I go here on the right side, there's 3 dots. And I know it's really tiny, but I can't make this any bigger. But you'll see participants can chat with. No one is already turned on because I have turned off chat. And you'll notice here also says host only or everyone publicly. So you can change it where you want your students to be able to chat, but you want to control who they're chatting with. So when you see host only, that means the students can send messages to you only as a teacher. And that is a way for you to see their responses, but no one else can see it. The other one is everyone publicly. That means everyone can see everyone's responses. So that is another way to control the chat. So anytime you see 3 dots, the security button, or the more button, that's where you can find additional features. So I'm going to go over here to the participants panel, and you'll see an option that says more below all of the participants. If I click more, you'll see additional features where you can ask all your students to unmute if you want them to be able to speak. Again, I have here checked off mute participants upon entry. I highly recommend this so that if a student was coming in late into the meeting and they're unmuted and they happen to have loud noises around them, it will interrupt the class. Again, I have allow participants to unmute is unchecked here. This is another way to access it as well. You do have it in the security button, but you can also access it from here. There's also an option to play sound when joining or leaving. So anytime a student leaves or comes in, you have a little doorbell sound. Some people don't like that sound because it kind of interrupts them, but some people do like it because it allows them to, excuse me, they do like that sound because it allows them to know when a student is coming in or happens to leave the meeting. You also have the option to lock the meeting where you feel like everyone is in your meeting, you don't want anyone else coming in. You can lock it from anyone else coming in, and then you won't be bothered with the waiting room. And again, there's also the option to enable the waiting room. So that is the gist of managing your students. Just view your students. So now I only have 21 here, and I was trying to use as an example here. If I'm able to see 21 tiles right now, so I have 5, 10, 15, 20. Actually, I have a 20 in here, but most of your cameras are off. I do know how our teachers want to be able to see all of their students, but unfortunately with Zoom, if there's more people coming in, great. Unfortunately with Zoom, you can only view 25 at a time. I'm only at 22. So if there is more than 25, you will see here on the right side. Right now you don't see it because there is only less than 25. If it's more than 25, there'll be a little triangle to let you flip from one page to another to see 25 participants at a time. So for example, if you had 50 participants, I hope you're not getting that many, but if you have 50 participants, then you will have 2 pages of 25 and on. So you can only see 25 of your students at a time. However, when you're screen sharing, it's a whole nother thing. Just like I showed in the presentation, there were screenshots of what your screen will look like when you're screen sharing. It won't look like the way my screen looks at right now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm using Zoom and WebEx at the same time. There is a green button here at the bottom that says share screen. I'm going to go ahead and click share screen. And my screen will look a little bit different from yours because one, I'm using 2 monitors at the same time. So I have desktop 1 and desktop 2. Also, whatever windows and applications you have open, you will see that as well. So I can choose to share my whole screen. I can share to choose only my Google Chrome browser and additional windows that I have open, along with a whiteboard and AirPlay. So here I'm going to show as a whiteboard as an example. I'm going to click whiteboard, and then I'm going to click the blue button that says share. So now it turns a little different here. My floating toolbar is now, my meeting controls is now moved to the top. and my participant screen is now moved to a stacked view. Now to show my participants here, notice I was like, oh no, I only see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people at a time. I can't see all of my students. So what I like to do here, I have my whiteboard, and I'm gonna resize it by putting my mouse on the corners or the edges to resize it so I have a little more space to see, my students. And here, because I have a lot of participants in here, you'll see these teeny tiny little icons. As much as I want to make this bigger, I can't. I apologize, but when you do go into Zoom, you'll see it. So I have the option to have it as a thumbnail where it's only showing me who's talking, and it will just pop up as the person's name. The next one is a thicker bar where it shows the video of the person that's speaking. The third option is where it will show me a stacked column of all my students' screens. So I just scroll by clicking on the little arrow to go from one screen or another. The last option is to show grid view. So I'm going to click on this, and now I could see more people. But notice how there's only 6. On the corner, you'll see these little lines, and if you stretch it open, that's where you can make it bigger. I'm going to try to make this as big as I can and see more of my students. Again, the max that we can do is 25, unfortunately. So if you have less than 25, you have the magic numbers. So now I can see my students here and work on the whiteboard. Now here's the problem with whiteboard. As soon as I turn it on, I don't know if any of you noticed, but you're able to start drawing without me giving you permission. So as soon as you open whiteboard, students can start drawing on it. So if any of you are on the Zoom, you could try to annotate right now. You may see this little bar here to let you draw and put in text. So I'm going to go ahead and start typing in here if any of you are able to. Anyone able to? Oh, my sharing has paused. Let me see here. Here we go. Let's see if you can do it now. I apologize. I accidentally pressed the pause button. There we go. So you see a name pop up, and then you can see where everyone is trying to draw. And I'm like, oh no, my students hacked my screen. I don't know what they're doing. It's because as soon as you open whiteboard, it turns on a feature for students to be able to annotate. And I'm like, oh no, 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 I don't want this. So at the top, when you see the security button, there's a new option here. It says here, annotate on shared content. Before, when I wasn't sharing, I didn't have this option. But when you turn on whiteboard or share your screen, this option shows now. It says annotate on shared content. So it is checked off. And I'm like, oh no, my kids are messing up my screen. And oh, look, all these hearts and stars all over my screen. So I'm going to click uncheck that. And then all of a sudden, you're not going to be able to make any changes to it. So that is how you're able to control and choose whether or not you want your students to be able to annotate on the screen for you. So I'm doing it in whiteboard, but anything that you're sharing, any content, when you click that security button and you don't want your students to be able to draw on it, make sure that is unchecked, the annotate on shared content. And oops, I have too many screens. Where are my other things? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and actually before I go on to there, Notice how you can still access by going to the security button. If you need to find a setting that you want to make sure you turn off or on. To see your participants, make sure you can click on the participants button, and a new window will open. And this is where, again, you can control your participants to mute them all or change them. And also, this is where I meant to show you as well, to make as a co-host. You can make anyone in the meeting, regardless of license or basic account, a co-host. So I'm just going to look for Clarissa here. Here, I put my mouse over it, and I click More, and I can click Make Co-host. It says, are you sure you don't want to make her as a co-host? And I'll click Make Co-host. So now I am the host, and she is the co-host. That is how you can make another teacher a co-host if they do not have a licensed account, and that you weren't able to add them as an alternative host in the beginning. So what I like to do is whenever I'm sharing, I make the screen that I am sharing with my students smaller so that I can see my participants panel. And then on top of that, I can't find the chat button. In order to find the chat button, you will click on the three dots where it says More, and the first option is Chat. So I'm going to go ahead and click Chat, and now here is my option to be able to see chat and answer any questions my students have or see their responses. If I do click More again, you also have the option to start your recording, open breakout rooms, excuse me, and additional annotating features, and to hide the floating meeting controls. I recommend keeping the floating meeting controls here so that you can find it easily instead of it hiding and popping up away. So I'd rather leave that there. Excuse me. So I'm going to stop share on Zoom here for a moment. It takes me back to my class. And I'm going to go back to the presentation. Now, here's the other one I'm explaining is on split screen. So managing your screens, I'm going to have a Mac, so I'm going to show you that. But if you do have a PC, it's almost the same setup, except the buttons are a little bit different. So you can watch the video here. But I'm just going to show here if I'm trying to share a screen with my students. Again, I will click the share screen, choose which screen I want to use. Mainly, if I just want to show my Zoom presentation, so I'm going to click on this one only and click share. And, oops, sorry, let me redo that. I'm going to share my entire screen. I'm going to click on desktop 2, click share, and I have multiple windows open right now. So I have this window here with the presentation, and I have another window in the back to show captions while I am talking. So I don't want, make sure people who need captions, I have it available by using the second screen. If I am using a Mac and I want to show two windows side by side at the same time, I will go to the green little dots. You'll see the red to close it, the yellow to minimize, and there's green to enter in full screen or be able to do split screen. So oops. If I click and press on the green, you'll see here it says tile window left of the screen and tile window to the right. So for example, I want this window to be on the left, so I'm going to let go on this left side, and you notice that it automatically pops to the left side of my screen. Then on the right side, it's going to ask you which window you want to be on the right side. I want this one, so I click on this, and now I have two screens side by side, so I can show my students the two screens at the same time. Then you'll see this little tiny gray line, and if I put my mouse over it, you'll see there's little arrows where if I want to make one screen bigger than the other, I can drag it and move it over. I want this screen to be smaller versus the right screen to be bigger, and on. So I can always resize my two screens. Anytime that I want to get out of the split screen, I can just move my mouse to the top, click the green button once, and it automatically snaps it out for me. I'm going to open that. Both windows are snapped both open. So that is how you're able to manage two screens and show your student two screens at the same time. I do have the Zoom open still, but here, managing students. Now, however, we did turn off and block students from renaming themselves, but somehow they are still trying to figured out how to rename themselves. First of all, if students are signing with SSO or in Clever, it will automatically take the name of their account so they can't change it. However, if a student happened to be able to change their name, you can always go to your reports and see who renamed themselves and what email they use. If authentication is turned on, it is easier for you to figure out who changed their name. Because if authentication is on, they have to sign in with a pgcps.org email. So I have a screenshot here showing my reports where it has Jack at pgcps.org signed in, and he tried to rename himself as Clark Kent. He thought he was Superman. So that's how I can pinpoint which student tried to change their name, and I can communicate that with my administrators and with the parent to explain that a student is doing something inappropriate, they're changing their names when they're not supposed to. If authentication is turned off, then anyone can join your meeting, and then they don't have to have a pgcps.org email. They could have a personal email. It could be blah, blah, blah at AOL.com, and that's a lot harder for you to pinpoint who was trying to rename themselves. So as long as you have authentication, it's a lot easier for you to narrow down who the culprit is. And we also have here, not going into too much detail here, but how to access your reports. You can go look at the Getting Started guide. The other important thing I want to show is to make sure you do end meeting for all. Students should never be left unattended without an adult in a Zoom meeting. So if you leave a meeting and you're the only adult, then a student will automatically be turned into the host and be able to control the meeting. So it is very important to make sure you click End Meeting for All, and it will remove all the users from the meeting. So make sure that you do press End and then select End Meeting for All. Because of time, we just put a resource here. This is a suggestion. It's not something required for you to have, but there is a Chrome extension called Zoom Scheduler. This allows you to create Zoom meetings within your calendar and be able to make them reoccur. However, please note that when you are scheduling a meeting with your students, that you make sure that you share the information in Google Classroom, not through Google Calendar. And also this defaults to using PMI, which is your personal meeting ID. So I'm just going to show briefly here in a new tab. Go to my Google Calendar. I already have this extension installed. And if I just click on any specific day when I'm trying to create a meeting, I'm going to click on my calendar. And because it is installed, you'll see here it says add Google Meet video conferencing as an option here. Excuse me. So here automatically, because it is a Google product, you'll see this option. Because I have the Zoom extension turned on, it's called Zoom Scheduler, I have a new button here at the bottom that says make it a Zoom meeting. So if I want to do Zoom meeting, just put that in there, add a time, I'll just say 4:30. And instead of clicking find a Google Meet video, add Google Meet video conferencing, I can choose make it a Zoom meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Gives it a moment to work its magic. And now the event has been made. If I click on it, you'll see all the Zoom information for that meeting. And it automatically uses my personal meeting room if you are using that. You're still trying to do automatically generated link or it's a different meeting ID, you will need to go in to the PGCPS Zoom to schedule that. So that is a way, and we always make sure that you give at least these 3 information: the meeting link, the meeting ID, and the passcode when you're sharing that information with your students. Now into the advanced features. Excuse me. So we're going to be looking at virtual backgrounds, screen sharing with external devices, polling, and breakouts. So some of you are still in the Zoom meeting with me, which is great. And I'm just going to show here, while I am in the meeting, I can always, so in order for you to see all these features, you need to make sure it is turned on in your settings. Once that is turned on, then you can be able to access them on your Zoom software. I'm just going to go back to my other Zoom meeting. Let me stop share on this one. If you're in the software, so here, this is the actual window for you to start your meetings. You'll see on the top right your little profile icon that you're signed in, and below that is a teeny tiny gear. So when you click on that gear, this is where you have the options to set up your virtual background. So again, open the Zoom app software, click on the teeny tiny gear setting, and on the left side, you'll see a long list of options. And here I'm going to go to background and filter. If you do not see the word background and filter, that means you haven't updated your software, and make sure you have updated that. So click on background and filters. Give that a moment. Turn on my camera here so you can see. So mine is already turned on. Hi everyone, and I have my virtual background behind me. It's just a green tablecloth behind me, and that's what's best to use when using a virtual background. So I'm going to go ahead and click none here for a minute so you can see my green tablecloth. It's beautiful. And this is where you're able to choose your background that you want to show up. We also recommend to make sure you check off, I have a green screen, my green tablecloth. So make sure that is turned on, and then you can choose the different options. Notice here I have several different kinds because I've been playing around trying to see which one's the cutest thing to put behind me. But if you want to have your own personal background, you do have to have it downloaded to your computer first. So if you find an image that you like, you can use that. There's a teeny tiny plus sign on the corner. If I click on it, oops, my screen just froze. Click on it, it's going to open and ask me where's the picture that I want to use as my background. So I'm just going to use my Intro to Zoom Part 1 image, and I'm going to click Open. Now, this is my background. So that is how you will add your own background, by clicking on the little plus sign and finding the image that's saved onto your computer. And then it's automatically saved in here, so I can switch from one image to another. If I wanted to change my image completely, that's how I can change it, and this is how you would set it up. However, if you don't have a green background, you can change the color. Notice here, it says here, manually pick the color of the background if the detected color is not accurate. There's this little teeny tiny little oval, and if you click on it, it's going to ask you what color do you want it to pick up. So just imagine here I have a white wall behind me. So even if I didn't have a green screen or green tablecloth to hang behind me, I can click on that white wall, and then it will say anything that's white is going to be my green screen. Or if you have a purple wall, anything that's purple is going to be my green screen. But they just call it green screen because that is the best color to use when doing that. So imagine if I had a green shirt, I'd probably be a head floating around. So that is how you will access your virtual backgrounds and be able to insert your images. So I'm going to go ahead and click none for now, and then I'm going to close out of that. But if I notice that, oh, in my meeting, I want to be able to put up my virtual background. So first, in my meeting, I will turn on my camera. You'll see me here, but it's not on. If you click on the teeny tiny carrots next to it, you'll see here it says choose virtual background. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And again, the window opens up for me, and I can choose my background, then close out of that, and I have my virtual background. So that is virtual background. The next thing I'm going to talk about is screen sharing with external devices. So I'm I'm gonna go back to my Zoom meeting. And so you can use any device that is connected to your computer. I'm just gonna stop this so that's less bandwidth. Anything that you connect to your computer as an external camera or anything external that you have connected to your computer. You can do that by clicking share screen. And if you had it in a camera that you have set up, you can click advanced. I currently don't have a second camera, but you will see here it says content for second camera. Then you can select that. However, Zoom works really well with iPads and iPhones. Because I am using a Mac computer, I can AirPlay my iPad and share that screen with my students while still be able to see my students in gallery view on this computer. So here, I'm gonna just select here, iPhone and iPad. Unfortunately, if you don't have this device, you won't be able to use it. And it doesn't have one for Android on here. But this is just as an option if you do happen to have an Apple device. So I'm gonna click here, iPhone, iPad via AirPlay. And then I'm gonna click share. I'm gonna give it a moment, and now my screen is all grayed out, and it's telling me to connect to my Wi-Fi. That's the name of my Wi-Fi. Please ignore that. My husband chose that name. And it's gonna ask me to tap screen mirroring on my device. And it's gonna ask me to choose the name of it while I'm on my iPad, and the name of it is Zoom plus the name of my computer. So when I select that, my screen now changes, and now it's showing what's on my iPad. So I'm just gonna go into here, and anything green is what my students see. So I can still see my students on this screen, have it on my computer while I am working around on my iPad. So for example, here we go. I want to show something with my students on my iPad. I'm going to use Seesaw. It's one of my favorite things to use with my students. I can do post student work. I have options to show a photo, a drawing, a video. But if you do have an iPad, you can also use this as a document camera to show your students something specific. So I'm just going to do drawing as an example. And you can see here, I am drawing on here, say 10 plus 10 equals 20. And I can do my lesson like this using the iPad with my students. So my students can see my iPad while I can see them, on my actual computer. So that is something that you can do when adding external device. I'm going to go ahead and stop this share. All right, I have way too many windows open. So that is how you would do screen sharing. Again, it may be a little bit different depending on what device that you have and what external devices you have attached to your computer. So when you do select screen share, make sure you try it out and test it out with someone, click on it, and then screen share the way that you want to. The next one is polling. So I'm going to show you how to do it within the meeting for polling and breakouts. Then I will also show you how to do it in advance. Because I'm already in the meeting, I'm going to show you this live. So while I'm in the meeting, I can start a poll right here. So right next to my share screen button, you'll see the option for polling. Again, if you don't see polling, it's probably because it's not turned on in your settings. So you'll need to go back to your settings, turn that on. You may have to update your software or sign in and sign back out for it to recognize that you have turned on the setting. So I'm going to go ahead and click polling, and this new window opens up, and it's going to ask it's pretty self-explanatory. It asks you what information you want. So I'm going to click add a question. And when I click on that, it opens a new window right here for my meeting. And it says edit meeting polls. I'm gonna move this out of the way for a moment. It opens this new window and I can click add poll. When I click add poll, this is where I can name the poll that I want. So this is for my math class. Here I can start typing the question by clicking on Untitled Question. So I'll just say, what is 5 plus 5 equal? Then I can start typing in my options for my students. Please note that this is a poll. It doesn't actually grade it for you. And this is just a poll for you to ask with your students. So I could just say 10, add another option here, 3. I can just use 2, but I can add more by clicking add option. There's another one. I'll say 9, add another option, just one more, oops, and put 0. I can continue. So this is just one question. I can add more questions by clicking add question. I can also change it from single choice to multiple choice, meaning they can choose more than one answer. And you could tell the difference because single choice, they are circle buttons, and multiple choice are square shaped buttons. So just note that. So I'm gonna click add question. Just gonna do one more. What is the 9 take away 0 equal? And I'll say wrong answer. Oops. Correct answer. When I am done with all my questions, I'm going to go ahead and click save. Actually, wait, before I do that, you can choose it to be anonymous where they don't know who answered what, or if you want to see who answered what, you will uncheck that. If you want to keep it anonymous, you can click the check, and I'll click save. Now you'll see the poll is already created in your web portal, but now I have this open because I am already in my Zoom meeting, and it took the questions that I created, and I can go ahead and click launch poll. So if I click on it, and it will send it to my students, and I see a timer to see how long I've had this poll open, and my students can start answering. So as soon as they start answering, I'll start seeing who chose what. So like 100% of you chose 10, and 100% of you chose wrong answer. So if I think I've given my students enough time to answer, I can go ahead and click end poll. So I know some of you are still answering, but I'm just going to go ahead and click end poll. And now I could see how much percent of my students chose what answer. And I also have the option to share the results with the students. So I can click share results, and my students will see this same window as me. They'll see how much percent got what answer. If I don't want them to see it anymore, I can go ahead and click stop sharing. And it takes me back to the polling. And I can relaunch it again by asking the same question again. So if you ask this question in the beginning and you want to see how much they knew the answer, then you can relaunch it again. Click continue. It clears all the previous answers. And then they can answer the question again and see how much they have changed their answers compared to the beginning. So you can keep relaunching this question over and over again. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click end poll. Anytime you don't want to use polls, you can click the red circle or the X to close out of it. And if you want to go back to it, you again click the polling button and access it. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. The other one is breakout rooms. So breakout rooms, the icon is shaped of 4 squares. And again, if you don't see this, make sure it is turned on. Make sure that it is turned on, and you may need to sign out, sign back in, and update your software. So here, I'm going to do breakout rooms here live in the meeting. When I click breakout rooms, I have this little window here. It may be a little hard to see, I can't really make it any bigger, but it will ask me to assign 20 participants into 2 rooms. So I can click on this little box here and choose how many rooms I want them to be divided to. And as I increase the number of rooms, it tells me how many participants will be put in the room. This one is choosing automatically. So I can put them randomly in different rooms, and it doesn't matter which room I want them to be in. I can do that. Or if I want to do it manually, I can go ahead and click manual. And then once I've decided how many rooms I want them to be, I'm just going to do 5 for now. And I'll click create breakout rooms. So when I click on that, it automatically gives me a breakout room 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it automatically names that. I am an elementary teacher at heart, so I like to name my rooms according to fruit because that's what my small groups were called. I can always rename it by clicking rename. So for example, here are my oranges. Click yes. I'm going to rename number 2 to my grapes. Click yes. And I'm going to rename room 3 to limes. Yes. Rename. And I'll just do bananas. And then one more. Watermelon. Okay. So now I have my 5 rooms. When I click the little caret below it, I can't really click anything because there's no one in it. But before that, I can delete the room if I decide I don't want 5 rooms, I only want 4. So click delete. It says, are you sure? Click yes. Now I only have 4 rooms. While I'm live in the Zoom meeting, I can start assigning my students what room I want them to go to. Again, as a reminder, only the host of the meeting can start off the breakout rooms and assign. The co-host can go from one room to another, but they're unable to start and create it. So I am the host. I'm going to click assign. And you'll see the long list of all of my participants, and I can pick and choose. I want this person, this person, this person to go to oranges. And if you notice as I click it, they pop up under oranges. So I'm going to click out here. I have 3 people here. I'm going to go ahead and click assign for my grapes. And those people that I've already put in a room disappear from the list. So I can start adding more people. So I have this many people in this room. I'm going to go ahead and finish off by adding the rest of the people in. Oops. I'm going to scroll down. And now the last group of people, I'm going to add them to my bananas group. Okay. So now I have added everyone in here. Now notice here, I'm going to just collapse these so it's less overwhelming. I could see my oranges group, and I also have additional buttons. I can exchange, oh no, I can't have Miss A in the group with Caitlin. So I can do exchange, and I can look at all the different groups. So like, okay, I think Eliana, sorry if I can't pronounce your name, I want her to go from limes to oranges, and I'm going to move Aida from oranges to limes. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and you notice I have switched the 2. If I look in grapes here, limes, she's in this group. So that's how you can switch before having them go into the rooms. Go ahead and omit that. The other one is to move them completely. If I don't want to exchange them, I can move them by clicking on move to. Then it's going to ask me, do I want to move them to grapes, limes, or bananas? Instead, I'm going to move someone from bananas. And I'm going to move Sue from bananas to oranges. And it automatically moves them there. I can always continue to move my students around, even though they're already in the breakout rooms. So I'm going to go ahead and first, before I start the rooms, there's an option that says options. So I'm going to click on that. And I did see someone ask me, can I have breakout rooms for a certain amount of time? If I click on it, I have move all participants into breakout rooms automatically. So as soon as I click open all rooms, it automatically takes them. It doesn't even try to ask them, do you want to move already? The next one is allow participants to return to the main session at any time. So they can always leave that room and go back to the main room. The other one is breakout rooms close automatically after a certain time. So this is where you can choose how many minutes you want it to be open. For this example, I'm just going to do 1 minute. You can also have a notification to let you know how much time is left. And also you can have a countdown after closing the breakout room. So you can have them see a countdown as before they leave that room. So now that I have all my students in their rooms, I'm going to go ahead and click Open All Rooms. And as the host, you're going to start seeing everyone start disappearing and they go into their own rooms. Now, please note that breakout rooms, it just came out from legal. I'm going to share that you some rules about breakout rooms. So now I'm by myself in the main room. As the host or the co-host, if I have this breakout room window open, I can move from one room to another by clicking join. So I want to go see what my oranges are doing. I want to click join. It says, are you sure? Click yes. Now it's going to take my screen, says it's joining the oranges. Now am I in my group with my oranges? And I'm like, oh no, where did my breakout room window go? It's right here at the bottom. Go ahead and click breakout rooms. And again, I can still move my students from one room to another. I can leave this room overall and go back to the main room. Or if I want to start, keep breakout rooms open. It was a pop-up because it's been a minute. I can decide I want to go to and join the grapes. I click on that. And now it moves me to the grapes. Please note that students should not be left alone in their rooms for more than 5 minutes. So if you are using breakout rooms and you're the only adult, you will need to move and rotate from one room to another. And I'll be explaining more information about that in just a moment. So now I decided the time is up. I want everyone to come back. I can click close now. And it's going to take me back to the main session. And then you'll start seeing all of my students coming back. If I click view and go to gallery, that's where I can see all my students again back into the main room. It does take a moment. They may have a pop-up saying, do you want to go ahead and go back to the meeting room, the main room, or just stay on until the countdown is over. So now I have my students all back in the breakout rooms. Again, just click on breakout rooms and you can always reorganize your students, exchange them, move them from one room to another, extend your waiting room time or shorten the waiting room time, and open your rooms and close the rooms. So I'm going to keep that open there. So I just showed polling and breakout rooms within the meeting. So if you were to do this in advance, you can do so by going to your Zoom account. I'm going to sign in again. If you go to the staff portal, the shortcut is pgcps-org.zoom.us. And then sign in. Way too fast. There you go. So either if you're in your personal room, if you're using your personal room to make your polls in advance, if I go to personal room, you'll see an option that says polls here at the top. If I click poll, this is where I can start and create additional polls. So that I made one already. It saved my polls from for the poll that's called math class. But instead I want to do add poll, and I want to do, this one is for reading class. And I'll say, and then again, you'll do the same setup, just like we did for the math one, where I could say, is this story fiction or nonfiction? And I'll say fiction, and I'll go here nonfiction, just as an example. And I'm going to go ahead and click save. So now when you do have polls made in advance, when you do open polling, you'll see you can choose which poll questions that you made in advance that you want to start with your students. So in here I had anonymous. If I open this up, then it shows the results of the last poll that I had. It doesn't show me the poll that I did in the first place. The first poll. It only shows the last time that I used this poll, the results. And as you see, it's anonymous, so I won't get to see who really answered it. It really, truly is anonymous. So I really won't know who answered it. Then here, I see poll 2, and because I haven't done this yet, I don't have any results to it. Actually, let me click edit here. I'm going to turn off anonymous, click save, go back to my Zoom meeting. I'm going to go ahead and go back here. So now I'm back in my polls. If I click on the little arrow next to it, you'll see poll tool reading class. If I click on that, I can go ahead and launch this instead. I'll give you guys a moment to answer that. And I noticed that I didn't make this anonymous, so you could see what that would look like. Okay, so here I have people answered. I'm going to go ahead and click end poll. Share results. It only shows how much percent to the whole class of what they answered. It doesn't show exactly to them like who said what. I'm going to go back here to this. I'm going to refresh it so that I can update with the results. Again, I'm using personal room, and I'm going to click poll, scroll down, open my poll 2. Close this. Don't know what happened there. I'm not supposed to keep it anonymous. Did I click on something wrong? I apologize for that. I don't know what happened because it's not supposed to be anonymous, but it didn't show for that option. So maybe if I go back to that, I'll make sure to put in the presentation where to find it for the results on there. So that is polling in advance. Okay, now to do breakout rooms in advance, I'm going to go back to my personal room, details. And because my personal room it's not turned on, I'm going to go ahead and click edit. And it's the same for scheduling. When you go back to the details and wanted to edit any changes, you'll see under meeting options, breakout room pre-assign. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And this is where I can assign my students into rooms in advance and not on the fly during the meeting. I will show you again how to do this from scheduling, but anytime you try to edit your meeting information, either it's scheduled or personal room, if you click edit, go to meeting options, you'll see breakout room pre-assign. And here, if you click create rooms, this window will open and will ask you to add rooms by clicking on the plus sign. I'm going to keep clicking, so I have like 3 rooms here. And to rename it, I'm going to select the room. And on the right side, you'll see a little pencil for you to rename it. So I'm going to say my Limes room. And I'm going to go to breakout room 2, click edit, rename that. So this is going to be my bananas. Just click out in order to keep the name that you want. And I'll just leave this last one here. For example, if I only wanted 2 rooms, I have here a button to click delete and leave it at 2. To add them in advance, you do need to have their full email address. So for example, Limes, I want my students to be Limes. So here's Clarissa Burton at pgcps.org. Then I'll click enter. I have added her to this room. I'm going to go to bananas. If I want to add Kim, I need to put her whole email address. Then click enter to add them. So anytime you add them to a room, you still have the option to remove them completely or move them to another room. Like, oh, I just realized I don't want Kim in bananas. I want her in limes. So next to her name, I click on move to, and it's going to ask me which room I want to change it. So I can click limes. So this is a way for you to put your students in their rooms in advance. And when you click out breakout rooms, it will ask you if you want to do if you want to load the pre-assignment. You also have the option to import from a CSV, which is a Excel spreadsheet. When you click on it, sorry, when you click on it, you can fill in the information on an Excel spreadsheet and then upload it, and it will automatically take that information and do the same thing we just did here. When you are done, you can go ahead and click save. Then you'll see here it says 2 breakout rooms. If you realize that you didn't have enough time to put in all your students in a breakout room, you can always go back and click edit and then add more students, move your students, or remove them. Again, you do need their full email address in order to do this. So that is how you pre-assign for breakout rooms. I'm going to go ahead and click save. Click save again. If you did schedule a meeting, I'm going to go back to meetings here. I do schedule a meeting, or any meeting that you've already scheduled, you'll click edit, fill in your information, scroll all the way down, and again, it's the same way. Check off breakout room pre-assign, and you can go ahead and create your rooms just like I did for personal room. When you're done, always make sure you click save so that it will save everything that you have done, and your pre-assigned rooms are made. I'm going to go ahead and close out of that and go back here. So we talked about virtual backgrounds, screen sharing with an external device, polling, and breakout rooms. We also created an advanced feature guide. So after the session today, you can always go to this presentation or go to the advanced features guide, and it gives you step-by-step directions and a video. So if I click on it to show you, it is a Google slide presentation. If you wanted to go back and get a refresher again on how to do something. So for example, polling, I click on it, it explains what polling is, Zoom's own article about polling, some step-by-step directions on how to launch it, and a YouTube video on the right side on polling with Zoom. Anytime you want to go back to a different feature, you can click on the arrow on the right side. And then the same thing for whiteboard, same information. This one is not a video, but it's to show you what it looks like when you're sharing. And again, there's additional information from Zoom on whiteboard and where to find and access that. Okay, now we have some time. So I know Clarissa's been doing an awesome job answering as much questions as possible in the Q&A. But I'm going to try to see if you have any additional questions. You can go ahead and put in the chat. And Clarissa, if there's something specifically that I need to reiterate, because a lot of people ask that question, if you could just let me know what kinds of things. Excuse me. Okay, how to do the side by side. Okay, so again, I am on a Mac, but if you go to this presentation and you have a different device, I do have YouTube videos here for you. It's on slide 21. This one's the Mac directions. This is the PC Windows directions and the Chromebook directions. So the one I'm going to show you is on a Mac because that's the only one I can show you. Notice here I have 2 windows open. Sorry, let me go back to the Zoom meeting. Thank you all for joining me in this Zoom meeting. I'm going to end all. Again, that's very important to make sure we kick all the students out. So I'm going to go ahead and click end meeting for all. So I can close out of that. And listen to the bandwidth on my computer. So I have two separate windows here, and I want to be able to split the screen and show them side by side. It's kind of hard to see them side by like this. So on here, if I want to do a full screen of two separate windows that I want my students to see, I will click on the little green circle. Also hovering, it will show up for me. I can choose if I want this window to be on the left, or I can move this window to the right. So I'm going to make this one to my left, and it automatically snaps to the left. And then it's going to ask me all the windows that I have open, which one I want to snap to the right. I'm going to click on this, and now I have both windows side by side. And this complete full screen. And if I put my mouse here in the middle, I can resize and see. I can make the left screen smaller and make my right screen bigger to do that. But another way that's really good to do is if you don't want to do full screen, I can make this smaller again by clicking on the green button. I made both screens smaller. And for even if you're on a PC or in a Chromebook, when your window is not full screen, you can always go to the corner of any of the window, and your mouse will turn into a little two-way arrow in the corner, and I can resize it however I want. So if I was sharing this window only with my students, I can still have my meeting, might see my students on the right side, have the participants panel open, the chat open, all in different places. Excuse me. So that's how you can use multiple screens. And for example, here I'm going to make this one bigger because it's my caption screen. Anytime that you have any windows open, and notice how all these tabs are open at the same time. If I can click on it and then drag it out, it opens into a new window. Yes, also I forgot about the guidance. I need to make sure I explain this. So soon this will be shared out publicly, but I'm just going to explain here as well. For breakout rooms, some important information. So this may be a lot, but I'm going to be reading it out loud to you so that it's clear. So this is coming from legal, just to let you know that teachers must provide training to students on how to work collaboratively and productively in a small group if they decide to use breakout rooms. So make sure they're showing them how to use it. 2, the age and developmental level of the students must be considered when deciding to use breakout rooms. Possibly utilize breakout rooms for secondary students only and not with the primary students because it's a lot harder. Please consider that. Number 3, teachers must inform parents about the plan to utilize breakout rooms. So you need to make sure you let the parents know that if you do plan to use breakout rooms, to let them know that you're going to be using it and how it works. Number 4, the teacher must provide parents and students with ground rules for behavior in a breakout room. Number 5, each time prior to utilizing breakout rooms, the teacher must review with the students the behavior expectations for the breakout room. Number 6, teachers must pop in and out of breakout rooms during the entire time, with no breakout room going without a teacher check-in every 5 minutes. So if you have a lot of rooms, we suggest to make them not as many rooms as possible, because then it'll be a lot harder for you to switch from one room to another within 5 minutes. So always try to check in. Don't leave any rooms unattended for more than 5 minutes. Number 7, breakout rooms should not be recorded. So if you are recording your students, if you're recording your Zoom meeting, it only records what room you are in. You do have the option to pause your recording when you decide to go into breakout rooms. Number 8, students will be able to report bullying anonymously starting October 5th and should report any other misbehavior to their teachers by emailing their teachers and requesting that the teacher keep the information the student provides private. Number 9, the student code of conduct applies to students participating in virtual breakout sessions. And number 10, if a student violates the rules in a virtual breakout room, he or she will not be allowed to participate in the breakout room and will be given a different assignment during a breakout room activity. So I know this was a lot of information, but please know that this is coming from legal. So if you do have more questions about this, when this information does come out publicly to everybody, then whoever is sharing that information, they're the best people to get more clarification on this guide. Just letting you know that we did not create this. This is coming from legal. I'm gonna put that out there. I do know that it is now 5:29, so our time is pretty much up. But I'm just gonna put here. Sorry. Again, all of our resources are on our Digital Tools Zoom page. If you go to bit.ly/T3PGCPS, sorry, and at the very top, select Digital Tools. And below Essential Tools, you'll see the link for Zoom. If you click on that. And here you'll see all of the resources, the recordings, the presentations, and information that we've shared on here is all on this page. And if you do have additional questions, please contact your assigned T3 trainer. And you can find that by going to the home page on the T3 site and click on Meet the Team. If you click on Meet the Team and scroll down, you could see a list of all of the T3 trainers and their assigned clusters and schools. So for example, here's Christopher. If I click the drop down, it shows all the list of schools that he's assigned to. So if you're in Bradbury Heights, that's he's your assigned T3 trainer. And again, we also link the Zoom Help Center, which is really helpful for your students. I'm sorry, for you. If you have any other questions, Zoom does a very good job of explaining and showing step-by-step directions and videos as well. And here is our contact information, bit.ly/T3PGCPS, which is our website. You can email us at t3@pgcps.org. So if you can't figure out who your assigned T3 trainer, you can email us there and it will go to the appropriate person. And you can follow us at T3PGCPS.